Hi, my name's Alex and I do arty things. So as you may notice if you've watched one of my other videos, I'm not actually in my art room today. Real quick explanation, my art room is actually somewhere else from where I live. It's a rented room for my sister and my brother-in-law. So when I recorded this video, I didn't have a whole ton of time. So instead of filming an intro and then filming the art portion, I just filmed the art portion and then planned on coming back like a week later to do the intro. Obviously this did not go as planned. So I'm recording this video in my parents' shed the day before I upload, which is very exciting because I'm running out of time as we speak. Anyway, my family has always been my #1 support in art, even if they don't always understand it. Specifically focusing on my youngest brother though, he has been very vocal about his support for my YouTube channel, watching my videos on repeat and updating me whenever I have a new subscriber, a like, a view, comments, and so on and so forth. Genuinely, his support has not gone unnoticed or unappreciated. His encouragement was genuinely one of the reasons why I had the courage and eagerness to upload a second and third video. Even now, I'm excited to upload this video and see his reaction in real time. The day I told him I was thinking about recreating a drawing that he made for a YouTube video, that night he had this drawing here finished. So this here, he told me, is a bear blob, and he's fighting in a blob-bear war. He has a gun and some action-y words, and if you can kind of see there's like some explosions on there. It's a very, very cute drawing. I was very excited when I saw it. Now, since I'm recording this intro after the art, I already know what the finished drawing looks like. In fact, I have it right here with me, but you don't. So with all that backstory out of the way, it's time to redraw my brother's art. The challenge with this drawing was working with an interesting concept, but a relatively simple composition. While I could have pushed it to the extreme and included fancy angles and shading and get into the storytelling, it was more important to me to be as close to the original drawing as possible, to recreate and improve upon, not to redo and recompose. To get something on paper and get ideas flowing, I started with a thumbnail drawn inside a small rectangle. I limited myself to using a Sharpie pen and only a minute to finish. This helped me understand the simple shapes and get the creative juices flowing, thinking about the core of the original without worrying about capturing details just yet. Transferring to a second sketch, this time I played around with plumper shapes and curves as well as the other elements in the picture. My brother told me he had an idea and started drawing with a green marker, but scrapped the idea in its beginning stages. However, I started thinking about how I could incorporate it, and realized it fit in with the boom pow pow pows. While I did say I wanted to recreate and not add in anything new, to me, the green in the background was fair game. I reasoned that while he scrapped the idea, it was on the paper and therefore was at my disposal. I started a third sketch to really finalize the lines and shapes I wanted for the bear, where the ears connected in relation to the eyes, from there where it would be in relation to the nose, and so forth. At this point, I was worried that the bear felt too plain, so I played around with the idea of a bow tie to give him a sort of secret agent-esque look. Later on, I did scrap this idea since, unlike the green explosion, this was adding in something that was not drawn on the original. Afterwards, I felt confident in the direction and my warm-ups, so I switched over to marker paper for the final sketch. Since I knew I wanted explosions packing a punch drawn with straight, harsh lines, I tried to keep the bear looking very chubby and round, with lines implying some weight. I even went back a few times to make his cheeks very tubby. This would create a fun, subtle, comedic contrast between the background and the bear. For the face, it's closer to a teddy bear than a real bear. He has big circular eyes, a button nose, and then arched eyebrows that form a puzzled expression or maybe a subtle, confident gaze, scouting his next victim in the blob-bear war. Considering he's a bear blob, I had to figure out how to convey that and what blob even meant, at least for artistic presentation. I landed on a texture somewhere between grape jelly and a gummy bear. I wanted the first explosion to look like a landmine or something nuclear, a mix of both. To get the best effect I could, I used a ruler to draw the original lines. Inside the shape of the explosion, I added in a combination of curves, straight lines, and sharp corners. For the blob bear's gun, the original is exactly how I used to draw guns as well. I tried to maintain a cartoony look while upgrading with a few more details, once again playing into that cartoonish detail that contrasted the bear. This also helped me with the feeling that the bear was no longer too simple because the gun is an extension of the bear's character. Now that the gun was placed, I started on the second explosion. I worked in this order to ensure that I knew where the gun was, what it looked like, and could now build the second explosion around it. I made one main cell and placed other incomplete cells around it. This one was supposed to be your more typical TNT explosion. I drew lines bursting from the middle, interrupting the cells, and debris flying out in all directions. 2 explosions, and the bear still won't look back. He's just that cool. Satisfied with the sketch, I moved on to the coloring. Looking at the bigger picture and trying to see how the puzzle would fit together, I decided to work on the bear first. The idea was, if I didn't like how the bear turned out, I could retrace the sketch with my light pad, giving me a safety cushion in the beginning in case I made a major mistake. This way, I could also make sure the background colors would make the bear stand out. Beginning with the ears, I had to first figure out the shading before moving on to the main chunk of the bear. I used a light peach color to create a highlight area. Then I used a dark brown to mark the shadows. Following that, I used a mid-tone to fill in more space. After, I used a slightly more desaturated brown to blend. Finally, to finish off the ears, I used an orange tone to blend the highlight into the rest and provide a warmer tone. It reflects in the footage, but I was very nervous to start coloring the main bear. Once again, using the light peach, I filled in soft shapes. I outlined the highlights with dark brown, filling in where I thought the deepest shadows would be. Like in the ears, these were great at giving me a general idea of placement and highlight. I knew working light to dark would give me the best chance of molding the shapes into what I needed them to look like over time. And so that I'm not reciting everything I talked about with the ear portion, I repeated the steps of using light peach, dark browns, oranges, and desaturated colors to create variety and sculpt the shapes. It was tricky trying to capture the gummy bear look. I wanted the color and shapes to have weight to them without looking like a basic cell shading or looking translucent and floppy. I took a break from coloring to look through my Minecraft pencil case for my 0.1 and 0.7 Hoohoo fine liners for line art. At this point, I had been drawing and coloring for hours. Consequently, my hand was shaky. I had to go over the lines multiple times to correct them. The rest of the drawing is going to be lineless, but the eyes, eyebrows, nose, and mouth needed some to help them stand out. During this process, I struggled the most with the eyes. I had the idea of adding in a black pupil and coloring the rest in a slightly lighter gray and having more highlights. I have no idea why I thought this would work, it just seemed like a good idea at the time. Scrapped that idea pretty quickly due to how creepy it looked and also didn't make much sense. Besides, the original eyes were much cuter. Speaking of the original, comparing the two, I noticed the first run of colors made the bear look too washed out. I added in an even darker brown for deeper shadows. In any area where one brown was, I colored on top of it, stepping down by one value. Doing this, it made the highlights too bright, so I used a darker orange, yellow, brown over them. This did improve the levels and push them back more into the piece. Once I felt I had the bear at a good place, I moved on to the background pieces. Starting with the gun, I colored the details black and filled the rest in with a dark, cool gray. Later, I added in different blues, all in a similar category as Robin's egg blue, to turn the gun into a ray gun. This provided a pop of blue into the piece and a little more motion. I decided to add in the words he used to decorate the page as well. The boom I shaped around the main cell of the explosion, and the pow-pows went scattered around the page. This really helped it feel more like a kid's drawing. I really like the effect it gives. I also drew in the grass. Not much to say about that. Good grass. Coloring in the explosions was a blast. For the first, I started at the points and worked my way towards the middle with a lime green marker, making sure to leave space around the inner yellow to fill in with a light green to get a glowing effect. Colored the inner shapes with a yellow marker and outlined with a darker yellow, pushing the glow just a little further. The second explosion was a lot of the same, using yellow and flicking the brushstrokes out from the middle, marking in red lines to separate the cells, then orange to blend and soften some of those edges just a little, and then made sure to include the debris. For the finishing touches, I outlined the gun to clean up its look, then filled in the grass area with an olive green and drew in some grass lines like my brother's drawing. I wanted to add low-key line artish lines to the bottom of the bear and around, something that would help separate the bear from the background without pure line art. The last step was using a white Posca paint pen, yes I did have it on hand, I made sure, to finish off the illustration with highlights and white lines, going around the gun and the bear to really make them pop. And here's the finished piece of art. My little brother is such a creative person. The original drawing just has a whole lot of creativity and a lot of charm, and I really hope I captured that in my style, and that my little brother loves the redraw. And of course, thank you for watching. I hope to see you in my next project.